guys, the best movie in the history of mankind, or is that peoplekind, has been released. Don't believe me? Look at the score. Yes, it's the movie Black Panther. Black Panther reigns with early 100% Rotten Tomatoes score. 100%, no dissent. It's 100% because the movie celebrates African achievement, even though it's fictional, and pride, and anyone that would rate it down can only be a racist, and racists do not deserve to receive employment in the United States. So I can't imagine any movie reviewer being so stupid and racist to rate this movie down. It was kind of like during Stalin's time when he gave a speech, you didn't want to be the last one to stop clapping. Not good for your career. All right, that's the professional reviewers, but what about you guys? Some of you guys do not think properly and may not rate this movie top score. And how do we prevent that sort of racism? Because we saw that is why the last Star Wars movie sucked. It was because of evil racist trolls that were allowed to comment. Well, Rotten Tomatoes has taken steps, and here it is. Rotten Tomatoes is fighting back against white nationalist Black Panther trolls. And I applaud what Rotten Tomatoes is doing. They need to delete any rating done by a white nationalist troll. And how you can tell if it's a white nationalist troll is if someone rates the movie not the top score, that proves they're a white nationalist troll. And we cannot tolerate white nationalism ruining the message of this black nationalist movie. And we can't let it be ruined because we need to get this message out to the African American children. In fact, in many school districts in Detroit, for example, they're taking school buses and sending kids to see this movie. It's an important message because African American kids need to see what could have been. Because in the kingdom of Wakanda is super advanced. They have super advanced computers. They have cured cancer. That's what could have been with black nationalism. In real life, what happened is Africa was the top civilization. They had the top technology. They're the most superior people. And then, unfortunately, these backwards cavemen from Europe came down to Africa and stole it all from them. Yeah, it took all their incredible inventions and cities and stole them all, brought them to Europe, and left the Africans for thousands of years in mud huts. So we must not ever let that happen again. Wakanda is ethno-nationalism. There are no Asians, there are no whites, there are no Jews. It's run by their people, only Africans. Africans control Wakanda. That's ethnic nationalism. The movie promotes that. I support that. One of the brilliant things about this movie is it argues against democracy, and that's pure dark enlightenment material that I've been advocating for a long time. Democracy is evil. In Wakanda, they have a hereditary king, a monarchy. They have tradition. That is everything that we on the right support.
Although I'm not a nationalist myself, per se, I don't disapprove of all forms of nationalism. I think that some countries are entitled to nationalism as a means of self-defense. What do I mean by that? Countries that are already in power, being nationalistic and presenting immigrants, migrants, refugees as an invading force is, in my opinion, not valid, because an invading force is an army. You know, an invading force is another more powerful country coming in and trying to take your land and resources. And that's a myth perpetuated by the more nativist elements in powerful countries. There are benevolent forms of nationalism, even though I'm not a big fan of nationalism. I'm not a big fan of nations. But for example, Hugo Chavez's nationalism, and you know the red democracies that formed in Central and South America during the Bush era were left-wing, populist, and nationalist. And I prefer that to the alternative, which is right-wing populism. And I'll explain to you why I think it's acceptable for exploited countries in South America and Africa, continents that have been robbed blind for centuries, to be nationalistic and isolationist and to defend their economies from the West, as opposed to, I'm very staunchly against white nationalism, I'm very staunchly against Western nationalism, I'm very staunchly against European nationalism, because these groups already have power. They're defending themselves from imaginary enemies, and eventually their version of nationalism turns into imperialism and colonialism based on ideas of supremacy. And how that relates to Wakanda, and how that relates to the Black Panther. This new meme is that the Black Panther Wakanda concept in Marvel Comics is being brought to screen is that xenophobia is cool, and everything the alt-right wants, it would be fine if it had a black face on it. Black Panther is the character is not. Firstly, the alt-right doesn't want an ethno-state. They want a racial state, because they want white people of various ethnic backgrounds to be allowed to have a white nation. They don't want a nation of Huguenots. They don't want a nation of Anglos. They don't want a nation of Gauls. They want a nation of whites. That's a racial state, and Wakanda is not a racial state. It's nationalistic, but it's not premised on some kind of idea that black people of all ethnicities being welcome. It's not even an ethno-state. Wakandans aren't an ethnicity. They're just a group of people with, they have infighting factions and stuff like that. So if a small African country decides to create an isolationist immigration policy where they don't want to let outsiders in, not based on race, obviously, meaning like if South and Central America was like, we don't let white people in, I wouldn't support a left-wing government that was progressive, that was like, well, we only allow certain colors of people in, because I don't support a racial state. I'm fumbling over my own ideas. The Black Panther concept also is not linked to colonialism. Wakanda is not a colonial imperialist state. The alt-right, for all they bluster about not wanting to be involved in wars, they just mean Jewish wars. If you do your homework, the anti-war sentiment in the alt-right is that they're not against wars, they're just against wars that are not in the interests of white people. So once they get, I mentioned this the other day, once they get consolidated into one group, then they'll just start staging imperialist wars, framing imperialist wars behind the idea of, they're doing it in the interest of white people, and it won't be because Jewish neoconservatives want to defend Israel in the Middle East. Furthermore, these victims of colonialism deserve colonialism. They deserve time to recover their resources, time to defend themselves from people who would come for their oil, people who would come for their, they've never been able to substantiate this idea that people from the third world are coming to the first world to rob resources. Most of the immigrants that come from the third world come to the first world to work, to come here and just get a job. You know, the Muslim migrants in Europe aren't robbing the country of diamonds and oil. They're just coming there to get a job. And yeah, some of them depend on government benefits when they're fresh off the boat. But they don't remain on government benefits for the rest of their lives. I mean, that's the same thing with the American preoccupation with parasitism from Mexico. Those people don't come here to live off of benefits. We don't even have a proper welfare system in this country anymore. Those people come here to work. Colonialists from Europe went to the third world in South and Central America and Africa to make the people there work. They went there to create slaves and to exploit resources. So no, not all nationalism is equal, and no, you know, I'm willing to abide, if not endorse, nationalism when it's on behalf of countries that have been robbed blind for centuries. They're entitled. I know that makes the skin of white people crawl. You know, white Europeans are very preoccupied with the idea that someone that is not them is privileged. That someone that is not them is entitled to some form of government that they're not allowed as you know, in their position of power. You know, we've had white nationalism. We've had race-based regional immigration programs in the States. Y'all had white privilege. You already had it, and it had to be taken away because you abused it, remember?